Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. Right here in Hive, the haven, which has become even more of a haven by the transcendental sound we've been vibrating from Srila Prabhupada's books for these last, 7 months. Still in the recovery stage of this major surgery, but feeling better by the day and being able to visualize myself as whole, which I couldn't do until a few days ago. Mainly because of the reinstituting the daily readings by all of your mercy. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the pastimes of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the nectar of life, the amritam, can make us happy under any condition. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that people would eventually want to learn Bengali to be able to read this book directly, the original. He also said, in due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it has subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Okay, we reached the 16th chapter of Madhya-lila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is on his way to Vrndävana. And on his way, he decided to stop and see his mother and the two mothers, his own mother and the Ganges. So he's arrived in the area and he's going from one place to another. And while he's going, hundreds and thousands and millions of people are following him. It's making it very difficult for him to go from one place to another. We're beginning with text 208. When the Lord stayed at the house of Madhava, many hundreds of thousands of people came to see him. Purport. Madhava is identified as follows. In the family of Shrikar Chattopadhyaya, Yudhishthira Chattopadhyaya took his birth. Formerly, he and his family members lived in Bilvagram and Patuli. From there they went to Kulia Pahadapur, formerly known as Padapur. The eldest son of Yudhishthira Chattopadhyaya was known as Madhavadas. The second son was called Haridas, and the youngest son was called Krishna Sampati Chattopadhyaya. The three brothers' nicknames were Chakadi, Tinakadi, and Dukadi. The grandson of Madhava was named Vrndävana, and during the time of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, some of Vrndävana's descendants, including those of his grandson Ramachandra, were still living at Bhagnapada, Vainchi, and other places. Text 209. The Lord stayed there for 7 days and delivered all kinds of offenders and sinners. 210. After leaving Kulya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the house of Advaita Acharya at Shantipur. It was there that the Lord's mother, Shachimata, met him and was thus relieved of her great unhappiness. 211. The Lord then visited the village known as Ramakeli and the place known as Kanai Natashala. From there, he returned to Shantipur. Text 212. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in Shantipur for 10 days. This has all been described very elaborately by Vrindavan Das Thakur. 213. I will not narrate these incidents because they have already been described by Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur. There is no need to repeat the same information, for such repetition would unlimitedly increase the size of this book. Those narrations tell how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met the brothers Rupa and Sanatan, and how Nishingananda decorated the road. I have already described these in an earlier synopsis of this book, therefore I will not repeat the narrations here. Purport. This information is given in Adi-lila 10:35 and Madhya-lila 1:155 to 162 and 175 to 226. Text 216. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Shantipur, Raghunath Das came to meet him. Text 217. Two brothers named Hiranya and Govardhan, who were residents of Saptagram, had an annual income of 1,200,000 rupees. Purport. Hiranya and Govardhan were inhabitants of Saptagram in the district of Hooghly. Actually, they were inhabitants not of Saptagram, but of a nearby village named Krishnapur. They took their birth in a big Kayastha family, and although their family title has not been ascertained, it is known that they came from an aristocratic family. The elder brother's name was Hiranya Majumdara, and the younger brother's name was Govardhan Majumdara. Sri Raghunath Das was the son of Govardhan Majumdara. Their family priest was Balaramacharya, who was a favorite of Haridas Thakur's, and the family's spiritual master was Yadunandana Acharya, a favorite of Vasudev Datta's. The village of Saptagram is located on the Eastern Railway from Calcutta to Burdwan, and presently the railway station is called Trishabiga. In those days there was a large river there, known as the Saraswati, and present-day Trishabiga is a great port. In 1592, the Pathans invaded, and due to a flooding of the Saraswati River in the year 1632, this great port was partially destroyed. It is said that in the 17th and 18th centuries, Portuguese businessmen used to come aboard their ships. In those days, Saptagram, situated on the southern side of Bengal, was very rich and popular. The merchants, who were the principal residents, were called Saptagram Suvarnavaniks. There were very many rich people there, and Hiranya Majumdara and Govardhan Majumdara belonged to the Kayastha community. They were also very rich, so much so that it is mentioned in this verse that their annual income as landlords amounted to 1,200,000 rupees. In this connection, one may refer to Madhya-lila, chapter 11, verse 41, which describes Udarana Datta, who also belonged to the Saptagrami Suvarnavanik community. Text 218. Both Hiranya Majumdara and Govardhan Majumdara were very opulent and magnanimous. They were well behaved and devoted to Brahminical culture. They belonged to an aristocratic family, and among religionists they were predominant. 219. Practically all the Brahmanas residing in Nadia were dependent on the charity of Hiranya and Govardhan, who gave them money, land, and villages. Purport. Although Navadvip was very opulent and populous during Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, practically all the Brahmanas depended on the charity of Hiranya and Govardhan. Because the brothers highly respected the Brahmanas, they very liberally gave them money. Text 220. Nilambara Chakravarti, the grandfather of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was much worshipped by the two brothers, but Nilambara Chakravarti used to treat them as his own brothers. Text 221. Formerly these two brothers had rendered much service to Mishra Purandara, the father of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because of this, the Lord knew them very well. 222. Raghunath Das was the son of Govardhan Majumdara. From childhood, he was uninterested in material enjoyment. 223. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Shantipur after accepting the renounced order, Raghunath Das met him. 224. When Raghunath Das went to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he fell at the Lord's feet in ecstatic love. Showing him mercy, the Lord touched him with his feet. Text 225. Raghunath Das's father, Govardhan, always rendered much service to Advaita Acharya. Consequently, Advaita Acharya was very pleased with the family. When Raghunath Das was there, Advaita Acharya favored him by giving him the food remnants left by the Lord. Raghunath Das was thus engaged for 5 or 7 days in rendering service to the Lord's lotus feet. Text 227. After bidding farewell to Raghunath Das, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Jagannath Puri. After returning home, Raghunath Das became mad with ecstatic love. 228. Raghunath Das used to run away from home again and again to go to Jagannath Puri, but his father kept binding him and bringing him back. 229. His father even had 5 watchmen guard him day and night. 4 personal servants were employed to look after his comfort, and 2 brahmanas were employed to cook for him. Prince. Text 230. In this way, 11 people were incessantly keeping Raghunath Das under control. Thus he could not go to Jagannath Puri, and because of this, he was very unhappy. Text 231. When Raghunath Das learned that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had arrived at Shantipur, he submitted a request to his father. Raghunath Das asked his father, "Please give me permission to go see the lotus feet of the Lord. If you do not, my life will not remain within this body." Text 233. Hearing this request, Raghunath Das's father agreed. Giving him many servants and materials, the father sent him to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, requesting him to return soon. Text 234. For 7 days, Raghunath Das associated with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Shantipur. During those days and nights, he had the following thoughts. 235. Raghunath Das thought, "How shall I be able to get free from the hands of the watchman? How shall I be able to go with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Nilachala?" 236. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was omniscient, he could understand Raghunath Das's mind. The Lord therefore instructed him with the following reassuring words. 237. Be patient and return home. Don't be a crazy fellow. By and by, you will be able to cross the ocean of material existence. Purport. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.54, Samashrita ye padapalava plavam mahatpadam punya yasho murarehe bhavam buddhir vatsa padam 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 yat vibadam natesham. This material world is like a big ocean. This material world is just like a big ocean. It begins with Brahmaloka and extends to Pataloka. And there are many planets or islands in this ocean. Not knowing about devotional service, the living entity wanders about this ocean, just as a man tries to swim to reach the shore. Our struggle for existence is similar to this. Everyone is trying to get out of the ocean of material existence. One cannot immediately reach the coast, but if one endeavors, he can cross the ocean by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. One may be very eager to cross this ocean, but he cannot attain success by acting like a madman. He must swim over the ocean very patiently and intelligently under the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or his representative. Then, one day, he will reach the shore and return home, back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Text 238. You should not make yourself a show bottle devotee and become a false renunciant. For the time being, enjoy the material world in a befitting way and do not become attached to it. Purport. The word markata vairagya, indicating false renunciation, is very important in this verse. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in commenting on this word, points out that monkeys make an external show of renunciation by not accepting clothing and by living naked in the forest. In this way they consider themselves renunciates, but actually they are very busy enjoying sense gratification with dozens of female monkeys. Such renunciation is called markata vairagya, the renunciation of monkey. One cannot be really renounced unless one becomes disgusted with material activity and see it as a stumbling block to spiritual advancement. Renunciation should not be palgu, temporary, but should exist throughout one's life. Temporary renunciation or monkey renunciation is like the renunciation one feels at a cremation ground. When a man takes a dead body to the crematorium, he sometimes thinks, this is the final end of the body. Why am I working so hard day and night? Such sentiment naturally arises in the mind of any man who goes to a crematorial ghat. However, as soon as he returns from the cremation grounds, he again engages in material activity for sense enjoyment. This is called shmasana vairagya or markata vairagya. In order to render service to the Lord, one may accept necessary things. If one lives in this way, he may actually become renounced. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.108, it is said, Yabata syat swanirvaha swi kuryat tavad artavit adike nyu natayam cha chaivate paramartataha. The bare necessities of life must be accepted, but one should not superfluously increase his necessities, nor should they be unnecessarily decreased. One should simply accept what is necessary to help one advance spiritually. In his Durgama Sangamani, Sri Jiva Goswami comments that the word swanirvaha actually means swa bhakti nirvaha. The experienced devotee will accept only those material things which will help him render service to the Lord. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.256, Markata Vairagya or Palgu Vairagya is explained as follows. Prapanchikataya buddhya harisambandhi vastunaha mumukshubhi prityago vairagyam palgu katyate. When persons eager to achieve liberation renounce things related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thinking them to be material, their renunciation is called incomplete. Whatever is favorable for the rendering of service to the Lord should be accepted and should not be rejected as a material thing. Yukta Vairagya, or befitting renunciation, is thus explained. Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjataha nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. Things should be accepted for the Lord's service and not for one's personal sense gratification. If one accepts something without attachment and accepts it because it is related to Krishna, one's renunciation is called yukta vairagya. Since Krishna is the absolute truth, whatever is accepted for his service is also the absolute truth. The word markata vairagya is used by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to indicate so-called Vaishnavas who dress themselves in loincloths, trying to imitate Srila Rupa Goswami. Such people carry a bead bag and chant, but at heart they are always thinking about getting women and money. Unknown to others, these Markata Vairagis maintain women, but externally present themselves as renunciates. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very much opposed to these Markata Vairagis, or pseudo-Vaishnavas. Text 239. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, within your heart you should keep yourself very faithful, but externally you may behave like an ordinary man. Thus Krishna will soon be very pleased and deliver you from the clutches of Maya. Text 240. You may see me at Nilachala, Jagannath Puri, when I return after visiting Vrndävana. By that time, you can think of some trick to escape. Text 241. What kind of means you will have to use at that time will be revealed by Krishna. If one has Krishna's mercy, no one can check him. Purport. Although Srila Raghunath Das was very anxious to join Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord advised him to wait for the mercy of Lord Krishna. He recommended that Raghunath Das keep his Krishna consciousness firmly fixed in his heart while externally behaving like an ordinary man. This is a trick for everyone advanced in Krishna consciousness. One can live in society like an ordinary human being, but at the same time, one's own business should be to satisfy Krishna and spread his glories. A Krishna conscious person should not be absorbed in material things, for his only business is the devotional service of the Lord. If one is engaged in this way, Krishna will certainly bestow his mercy. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised Raghunath Das, Yatha yogya vishaya bhunja anasakta hoya. The same is repeated. Antare nishta kara bahye loka vyabhahara. This means that one must have no desire within his heart other than to serve Krishna. On the basis of such a conviction, one can cultivate Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-200. Laukiki vaidiki vapi vatya kriya kriyate mune. Harise vanukul laiva sakarya bhaktim ichchata. A devotee may act as an ordinary human being or as a strict follower of Vedic injunctions. In either case, everything he does is favorable for the advancement of devotional service because he is in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Text 242. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bade farewell to Raghunath Das, who returned home and did exactly what the Lord told him. 243. After returning home, Raghunath Das gave up all craziness and external pseudo-renunciation and engaged in his household duties without attachment. Text 244. When Raghunath Das's father and mother saw that their son was acting like a householder, they became very happy. Because of this, they slackened their guard. Purport. When Raghunath Das's father and mother saw that their son was no longer acting like a crazy fellow and was responsibly attending to his duties, they became very happy. The 11 people, 5 watchmen, 4 personal assistants or servants, and 2 brahmanas who were guarding him became less strict in their vigilance. When Raghunath Das actually took up his household affairs, his parents reduced the number of guards. 245, 246. Meanwhile, at Shantipur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu assembled all his devotees, headed by Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu, embraced them all, and asked their permission to return to Jagannath Puri. Text 247. Because he had met them all at Shantipur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested all the devotees not to go to Jagannath Puri that year. Text 248. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I shall certainly go to Vrndävana from Jagannath Puri. if all of you give me permission, I shall return here again without difficulty. Text 249. Clasping the feet of his mother, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very humbly requested her permission. Thus she gave him leave to go to Vrindavan. Text 250. Srimati Shatri Devi was sent back to Navadvip, and the Lord and his devotees started for Jagannath Puri, Niladri. Text 251. The devotees who accompanied Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rendered all kinds of service on the way to Nilachala, Jagannath Puri. Thus, in great happiness, the Lord returned. Text 252. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived at Jagannath Puri, he visited the temple of the Lord. News then spread all over the city that he had returned. 253. All the devotees then came and met the Lord with great happiness. The Lord embraced each of them in great ecstatic love. Kashi Mishra, Ramananda Roy, Prajumna, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Vaninath Roy, Shiki Mahiti, and all the other devotees met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gadadhar Pandit also came and met the Lord. Then, before all the devotees, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to speak as follows. 256. It was my decision to go to Vrindavan through Bengal in order to see my mother and the river Ganges. Text 257. Thus I went to Bengal, but thousands of devotees began to follow me. Many hundreds of thousands of people came to see me out of curiosity, and due to such a large crowd, I could not travel very freely on the road. Indeed, the crowd was so large that the house and the boundary walls of the house where I stayed were destroyed, and wherever I looked, I could see only large crowds. 260. With great difficulty, I went to the town of Ramakeli, where I met two brothers named Rupa and Sanatan. 261. These two brothers are great devotees and suitable recipients of Krishna's mercy, but in their ordinary dealings, they are government officials, ministers to the king. 262. Srila Rupa and Sanatan are very much experienced in education, devotional service, intelligence, and strength, yet they think themselves inferior to straw in the street. 263, 264. Indeed, the humility of these two brothers could even melt stone. Because I was very pleased with their behavior, I told them, although you are both very much exalted, you consider yourselves inferior. Because of this, Krishna will very soon deliver you. Purport. Such are the qualifications of a pure devotee. Materially, one may be very opulent, experienced, influential, and educated, but if one still thinks himself lower than the straw in the street, one attracts the attention of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Lord Krishna. Although Maharaj Prataparudra was a king, he took up a broom to cleanse the road for Lord Jagannath's Rath chariot. Because of this humble service, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased with the king, and for that reason, the Lord embraced him. According to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions, a devotee should never be puffed up by material power. He should know that material power is the result of one's past good activities, karma, and is consequently transient. At any moment, all one's material opulence can be finished. Therefore, a devotee is never proud of such opulence. He is always humble and meek, considering himself lower than a piece of straw. Because of this, the devotees are eligible to return home, back to Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I'm going to stop a little early tonight. Don't mind. My body is a little overtaxed today. I did a little bit too much. So please forgive me for having such a short session. I told you that until my body becomes recovered completely, sometimes I'll have to cut short the readings. Please forgive me for that. But what we read was incredible. How Rupa and Sanatan were so opulent and so knowledgeable and so culturally advanced and still thought themselves lower than a straw in a street. This is the secret pathway to the heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's not a matter of our external circumstances that makes one a great or lesser devotee. It's our mentality. It's our devotional attitude. It's our dedication of our life to devotional service. If we give ourselves, give this life to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to our spiritual master, then all the impediments of devotional service are removed in a very natural way by the mercy of Lord Krishna. We don't have to struggle. We just have to keep our attitude one of complete submission to Krishna, completely dedicating our mind and senses and words to the service of the Lord. In whatever condition we're in, we're protected in the most wonderful ways, actually. Whatever we need is provided for us without intense endeavor. It's amazing. So now we'll start tomorrow just with this verse we just read. And we'll read it again. We'll start at 263, 264. Okay, Hare Krishna, whatever reflections are there in your hearts, please let them shine forth so we can look at them and enjoy them.
Sudevi Dasi.
Hare Krishna, Sudevi Dasi.
Jesus, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai, all glories to Prabhupada.
Rati Manjari says, Hari Bol, Jai Guru Maharaj.
Well, thank you, Rati.
Santa Rupa Devi Dasi says, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Santa Rupa Devi Dasi.
Vibhu Sharma.
Vipul Sharma.
Vibhu
Sharma.
Says, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
From Rashmi Rao. I think this is Rajma.
Oh, from Lakshmi Rao. Mahalakshmi. Rajalakshmi.
Says, Hari Bol Maharaj.
Hari Bol.
Please accept our humble obeisances.
Well, not only that, but you're now one of my mothers because you took care of me so well at your house after the surgery. So now I feel family with you. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
And Yadutama Das says, Hare Krishna Gurudev.
Hare Krishna Nuttama.
My humble obeisances to you and all glories to Prabhupada.
Mm-hmm. That was Anuttama?
Yadutama.
Oh, Yadutama.
Yadutama.
I thought you said Adutama. Or, yeah.
From Noel Craver.
Noel Craver, Hare Krishna.
He says, Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. I am so happy to see you and hear you read this nectar to us.
Hare Krishna.
It grounds me in my daily devotional service and duties.
Well, you can bless me that my voice will come back, because I kind of lost my voice today a little bit. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Yes, it's so wonderful to share this nectar.
Roy Kanu, Devi Dasi says, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Roy Kano, Devi
Dear Guru
Dasi.
Maharaj.
Hari Bol.
From Patrick.
Hari Bol, Bhakta Patrick.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to
Jai Ho.
And then Yadutama has a comment. Here he says, I always really enjoy when Lord Chaitanya instructs Raghunath Goswami to not act like a crazy man. I find this very instructive and makes me think of how Srila Prabhupada wants us to act like perfect ladies and gentlemen.
Yes,
It seems like this is one of the highest forms of preaching.
absolutely. Very nice point. Well put. Sadhu. Very nice. We should act in such a way that when anybody meets us, he will think, that's the nicest person I ever met. That's how we should act. And that's not an easy thing to do, because we move about in the world and we meet so many different kinds of people. So in order to evoke that response from people, one has to be very, very sensitive and very compassionate and caring, and at the same time intelligent, because to be able to act like a real gentleman in front of all kinds of people when they're coming on with all different kinds of vibrations and this and that and the other thing, that requires spiritual intelligence. It's not an easy thing to accomplish, to act like a gentleman in all circumstances, lady and a gentleman in all circumstances. And Raghunath Das Goswami, he heard this instruction from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he immediately carried it out. That's how advanced he was.
Something from Rati Manjari.
Okay, Rati, let us have it.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Tonight we heard of several of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's loving exchanges with his devotees. To hear of his advice to Raghunath Das to live in the world externally as an ordinary person, but internally dedicate himself to Lord Krishna was very insightful.
Yes.
I was wondering how we should understand that Govardhan Majumdar was so dedicated to Advaita Acharya and served him, and appreciated Lord Chaitanya so much. But when his son Raghunath wanted to join the Lord, he fought his son's desire with hand and teeth. How should we understand this?
We should understand, as Srila Prabhupada explains in another place in the book, that they were both pious, but they were materialistic in their attitude. Their attitude was still materialistic. They were proud of their good fortune and proud of their ability to take care of others. And therefore, when it came time for their son to renounce, they couldn't tolerate it. They were too attached. So that's a signal that they are materialistic, pious men, but they weren't actually pure devotees. But they got a lot of piety because of the patronage of Advaita Acharya, because he helped them. I mean, they helped him. They were very famous, but that means that you don't become pure devotee by giving a lot of money to brahmanas and saintly persons and then being seen to be pious and basking in that glow of that reputation. So they were like that.
Rati says they wanted Raghunath to overtake their empire.
Yes. Take over, not overtake, take over.
I mean, they wanted to transfer it to him and glorify the fame of their family dynasty.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But as we learned, if we follow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction, and it wasn't just to go there and stop acting like a madman, because he knew as long as he acted like that, then they would be very vigilant to keep him. But he did say, remember, he said, Krishna will arrange, and you will figure out the trick to be able to escape at some point. So he gave him both instructions at the same time. So it's not that we should be satisfied by acting like an ordinary person in the material world, but we should cultivate the internal desire by cultivating the feeling of separation from Krishna. And that intense feeling of separation from Krishna attracts Krishna's attention, and he arranges things.
Rati says, I understand it better now. Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
And a question from Bhakta Patrick.
Hare Krishna, Bhakta Patrick.
He says the humility of Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis can be obtained only through service to the devotees. Is this correct?
Yes. Actually, the verse is Yasya Devi Pura Bhaktir Yatad Tevi Tatagaro Tasyaite Caitanya-caritämrta Prakashante Mahatmanaha. That only those persons who have full faith in Krishna and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge revealed to that person, to such a person. Once Guru Kripa, when he was one of the first sannyasis, and he was one of the first devotees to learn a lot of verses. And so Prabhupada came to him that he was learning a lot of verses. And so Prabhupada asked him, so what do you think is the best verse? And immediately Guru Kripa said, Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, 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 gatiranyata. Prabhupada said no. He said, Yasya Devi Pura Bhaktir, Yatata Vetitagaro, Tasyate Katataryato, Prakashanta Mahatmanaha. And that's how important that verse is. Practically, Prabhupada considered it the most important verse. Of course, there's many, many verses that are very, very, very important, essential. But still, Prabhupada said that.
Okay, from Brian Phillips, he says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Yes, Bhakta Brian.
Thank you for another wonderful serving of nectar. We are all so lucky. We are so lucky. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada, and I am the one who is lucky to be with all of you.
From Rati Manjari, she says, I also thought it fascinating to hear how Lord Chaitanya tolerated that he could not reach Vrindavan because of all the crowds. Being God, he could have easily transported himself to Vrindavan without delay, but instead he surrendered to the advice of his devotees not to go there this time, and he simply returned to Jagannath Puri.
Yep. Because he came and acted as a devotee of himself. So he acted as a devotee, the perfect devotee. Therefore, he agrees to appear to follow the laws of nature, material nature. Even though he can do anything, he does it within the rules of the material time and space. Krishna, he sometimes broke those rules and did things that were, humanly impossible. And Lord Chaitanya also did things that were humanly impossible. But in general, they would follow the social, rules of the Vedic culture.
From Braj Balaba.
Braj Balaba Haribol. Sorry I haven't been around too much today. I've been doing a lot of things.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj. I look at your humility, which is your prime feature during these calls. Your smile and feeling about your relationship with your Guru, Prabhupada, is very telling. Does this depth of relationship take time, or what's the secret?
The secret is his mercy. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just clinging on to his lotus feet. I was very, very fortunate that I became extremely affected by his books just when I touched them. I told the story many, many times. I won't repeat it again. But as soon as I touched his books and realized they were from the same author, even though they came from unlikely sources, then I knew that this was something very, very special. And when I first saw him, just a few days after that, I just surrendered myself entirely. And I haven't had a perfect life. I'm not a perfect person. But I've always been able to reach out and keep the teachings very near to me, and always take shelter there, no matter what happens to me. And therefore, I've gone through some extreme situations in life, and it looks maybe effortless, but it's not. But possible only by Prabhupada's mercy. I think perhaps there was some previous contact. I think the attachment was already there. That's my perception. But Krishna is so kind that from time to time he just either takes everything away or gives everything, in a way that you can't understand, just to teach us and to increase that attachment. We're useless without Srila Prabhupada. We don't know anything. So as I said before, the secret is to just very simply give oneself fully to one's spiritual master. And everything comes from that. It may take time. It may happen instantaneously. It may seem to come and go. But if one actually gives one's heart to one's spiritual master, then the Lord from within the heart arranges one's life in such a way that we can stay close to our spiritual master, whatever the circumstances are.
From Rajalakshmi Devi Dasi and Chakradari Das, they say, thank you, Maharaj.
Well, Hare Krishna, you too. Thank you so much for giving me shelter in my hour of need. You were a manifestation of Srila Prabhupada's mercy on me. Hare Krishna.
And Rati Manjari says, Srila Prabhupada's mercy, ki jai.
Jai ho. And with that, I will leave you all and try to follow the indications of my body and mind as I go through this recovery. And it's very pleasant. It's not too much suffering because of the nature of the place I live and the devotees I live with and the devotees I associate with, you all. And just the nature of Krishna consciousness is so pleasant, so wonderful. Shri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night. Same time, same place, same subject. The nectar of the lotus feet of the Lord. Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Hari Bol.